Hey everybody, and today I'm going to show you how you can use Visual Basic to create a simple for loop to go through a list of cells and values and to make changes and delete rows. So in this example, I've downloaded the monthly retail trade data from the US Census Bureau in Excel format. I'll leave a link to this video, so if you want to follow along with a post on my website, you can do so. And the key thing, what I want to do is highlighting these rows that have these values that have an asterisk enclosed by parentheses, because these show that there's missing or incomplete data, and so it may not be terribly useful to include this. So I'm going to loop through, highlight these, and I'm also going to delete them. So the first thing you want to do is open up Visual Basic. So if you don't have this developer tab, what you want to do is go into the Excel options, go to File and Options, and then you should see an area where you can tick off the developer tab. And then once you have that, you'll see this on your ribbon. And to launch Visual Basic, you can either click the button here or hit Alt F11 as that shortcut indicates. Once you do so, you should see something like this pop up where you've got a window for your code, and you've got properties, and then your project here. So I've got the file that I've got here, and I'm going to insert a module. So now I've got something I can work with. So what I'll do is I'll move this to the side just so I can see a bit of both here, and I'm going to start by creating some variables here. Well, actually, the first thing I need to do is create the actual sub procedure. So to create a sub procedure, enter the word sub and then the name of it. So let's say cleanup, automatically create that end sub line for me. And then now I'm going to set up my variables. So I'm going to create the worksheet variable, dim for dimension, ws being the name of the variable I'm assigning as worksheet. And if you wanted to assign a worksheet variable, what you need to do is use the set keyword. Say set worksheet equals to, you could either do worksheets and then the name of the worksheet. In this case, I've got table 1, which is the default on here. Or you could just set it to the active sheet. And so that anytime you run this code, it's going to run on the sheet that's currently selected. Another variable I'm going to create is for the cell, dim cell as range. And this is important because I'm going to cycle through all the cells. So I just want to be able to assign a variable to each of the cells I'm going through. I'm also going to create a variable for the last cell, because what I want to do is I'm going to create a for loop. So I'm going to specify the start and end rows that I'm looping through, and that's what that last cell variable is going to be helpful for, because I want to set the lower limit of how far I'm looping through. And then lastly, I'm going to create a variable for what's called I as integer, and this is just going to be what the variable that I'm going to be looping through. So I'm going to create the last cell variable here, and how this works is I'm going to set it to the worksheet dot range, and I'm just going to select A1. It really doesn't matter. The key thing is I'm selecting special cells and selecting the value last cell, and I'll show you what this is the equivalent of in Excel. So basically what I did here was I pulled the last cell and grabbed the row of that last cell. So if I were to run a message box to see, okay, what does this last cell contain? I can hit the play button, 92. Okay, so that's the value of that cell. So if I go back into here, I can select F5 special last cell. That's what those special cells are. Sends me to the very end. So this is AF92. Another way you could get to this is by hitting Control End, and it gives you the same thing. It'll take you to the last cell in the current sheet. So the purpose of that is so I know, okay, how far down the data goes. And so now that I've got there, now my last cell is set to that. So what I can do now is create my for loop. So with the for loop, I'm going to say for, I'm going to use I as my variable, and say equals 1 to last cell. Last cell needs to be spelled the same way. I'm going to close it by typing in next I. So it's going to So I is going to basically start at a value of 1 and increment down until we get to 92. And this is where I can use that cell variable that I created before. So again, I'm going to use set cell. So you need to use set when you're talking about a range, like whether you're talking about a cell or a worksheet, you need to use cell. When I created this last cell, I'm using an integer, so I don't need to do that. So set cell equal to WS, again, my active worksheet, my active sheet, WS dot range, and in this case, I'm going to be looking at column D. So I'm going to say column D ampersand I. Okay. So I'm going to setting the active cell to D. It's going to be D1, and then as I loop through until the last cell, which is 92, it's going to go D1, D2, D3, all the way till D92. So it's going to be looping through each and every one of these values. And now what I'm going to do is use an if statement to say, okay, if this cell, again, this is going to be all these D values here, these in column D, if the cell is equal to parentheses and an asterisk, then what I'm going to do, and I'm going to close this out first. And so now what I'm going to do is apply formatting. So I'm going to use the cell variable again and say cell dot entire row. And the cool thing about once you press these dots is it'll show you the different options you have for your variable or what you can do. So I'm going to select entire row, interior, which is the background, and then set the color equal to VB, Visual Basic red. And so now if I run this, you'll notice all these rows have been highlighted in red. I could also do a VB green. Not everything is going to have this sort of formatting, VB green. Like for instance, if I did VB orange, one trick you can tell with Visual Basic that it doesn't recognize this, it didn't automatically capitalize the O the way that it did in the other ones. Like if I did VB yellow, it automatically capitalizes. So that's a hint that it's recognized what you're doing there. So now that works. So that's a really simple option as far as highlighting goes. I'm going to show you how we can actually go about removing these rows. But before I do that, I'm going to duplicate this and just create a copy here. And I'm going to go back to my Visual Basic here and show you how we go about deleting rows and why setting up a loop like this isn't ideal. So if I were to go back to entire row dot delete. So right now it's going to go and loop through all of these yellow values here, because these are the ones that I've highlighted to say, okay, these should be deleted, and it's going to remove them. And so if I were to run this macro, and this is the important thing to remember about macros, is that there's no Control Z. You can't undo these, so you want to save these, and that's why I created a duplicate here, because I can't just go and undo this through just a simple shortcut. So I'm going to hit the play button, and it's deleted everything. But wait, there's still values in here. So it didn't actually do the job that I was hoping it would do. And so I'm going to copy this one more time here, create another copy. And now I'm going to go through the second one, and I'm going to modify this code a little bit. And so the key problem that's happening here is that when we're looping through these cells, it's starting through, let's say, row 18. It's deleting that, but upon doing so, it's adjusting the range. Everything adjusts up. So now you're not looping through the next item. So like, for instance, row 20 becomes row 19, right? So everything's adjusting. And if you're deleting, especially if you're deleting rows, you want to work your way backwards. And so to do that, I'm going to adjust this. So instead of going from 1 all the way to 92, I'm going to work backwards and work from 92 all the way up. Because that way, if I delete this row, no problem, because everything above it isn't going to get pushed down, right? Whereas if you delete this top row, everything from beneath is going to adjust up. So that's where you want to be careful when you're deleting values. So I'm going to change this. So instead of saying 1 to last cell, I'm going to say last cell to 1. And I'm going to say step minus 1. What step minus 1 means is I'm moving 1 row up at a time. If you wanted to jump 2 rows at a time, you'd minus 2. 3 rows, then you minus 3. But I'm moving 1 row at a time up. So that's basically what I'm doing here. So now when I do this, we shouldn't run into that issue because now, again, it's working backwards from the bottom up. And we shouldn't see that adjustment. So if this works properly, all these values with the asterisk should be gone. So I'm going to hit the play button again. And sure enough, all those values with the asterisks are gone. So again, compare this to this where we still had them. And you can tell by the highlighting that they exist in here. This one does not. And so they have been removed. So that's an important distinction, especially when it comes to anytime you're deleting something. You want to make sure that you're working from the bottom up. If you're working from the top down, all that adjusting, when you delete these values, that's going to impact everything beneath it and move those other rows and values up, and that's going to mess up your loop, especially if you're deleting something. So there's a couple ways you can do these sort of for loops. One, you can work from the top down, which is just the default, or you can move from the bottom up, last cell to 1, and then indicate by what value you want to jump by. So there's a lot of things you can do. So you may want to play around with, just using this period and seeing all the different things you could possibly do. You can adjust the borders, you can do auto fit, you can do a whole lot of stuff in here with the formatting. I just wanted to show you how you create a loop. This isn't the only kind of loop you can do, but it's a very common one to use. This is the one I use the most often. So I find if you know how to use the for loop, the other ones you won't have issue with either. But this one's a bit easier to use and more versatile because you can specify the range. You can adjust it so that you're not going through an endless loop with some of the other ones. So have a look at that, and yeah, let me know if you found this video useful. I haven't done a lot of videos on Visual Basic. I wasn't sure how much interest there would be, so let me know in the comments or likes, and if you do, then I'll post more. Otherwise, hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching.